welcome to the Spooling Up channel, guys. My name is Naz. What I'm going to be doing today is, as the video says in the title, I'm going to be fitting a boost gauge on a MK4 GOLF GTI. It's one of those jobs that I've just totally put off for a few months now. I've had all the bits for ages, but because it involves interior work and I'm not too good at the more fiddlier jobs, there's always like a hidden secret way to undo some of these interior panels, so always causes a bit of a problem. It's never straightforward, but apparently this is quite an easy job, so I'm going to go ahead and start doing it now. Hoping to obviously have a nice gauge install, and I know it's probably a little bit gimmicky and I'll probably stop looking at it after a while, but obviously at the minute the car's boosting to, I think it's 8 psi. Once I get it mapped, it will be quite a lot higher, so it'll be interesting to sort of see and look at and keep an eye on as the time goes. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and start fitting that now. Right guys, so running through what we have. First things first, here's the boost gauge, little eBay special. Got some of the vacuum line here. This stuff's alright, it's a little bit thin and it does feel like it might collapse a little bit if it had to put up with some really extreme pressures. Here's the boost gauge itself. Doesn't seem that bad at all, you know. I quite like it for something basic and something cheap. I feel like it looks pretty good and it should do the job. My friend's fitted one of these, he's happy with it. So that's what you get in there. You get the vacuum line, you get the gauge itself, and you also get the T-piece connector that you're going to need, so that's handy. As extras, I've actually bought some connectors for the wiring because I believe that I may need to extend it. Got the pillar pod, so this is obviously where it will be held to the pillar. I bought some extra vacuum line because it's going on the pillar and because I'll be connecting up in the engine bay, I believe it needs to be longer. And the annoying thing is that I was really hoping that I'll be able to get clear just like this, but I couldn't. So I've got this cloudy one here, but this one I'm going to use on the interior of the car because you're not going to see it, and I'm going to use the clear one in the engine bay. You can go for black if you want, it will be disguised a lot better. I've got these Velcro strips that are sticky back. This is for holding the pod onto the actual A pillar post itself. Don't really want to use screws, but I might end up resorting to it, we'll have to see. Some extra wire just in case I need to extend those ones, and I sort of panic bought some extra connectors. You know, obviously I'm going to have to join these up, so I'm going to need a straight connector for that, but for any other reason as well, got some spare ones there. So that's everything we've got. Don't know where I'm going to start this job, but I'm going to crack on with it now and see where I get up to today. Hopefully it doesn't take too long, and then check if it works. I'm going to check if it works in the daytime and at night time, because obviously got all the lights so on the gauge itself, so I want to see what that looks like too. Right guys, so I thought I'd come into the car and show you how this is supposed to look when it's done, but I've realised that this universal pod thing is literally the worst thing ever. I bought it, like I said, I bought it ages ago, thinking it would probably work well, but when I look at it, it just doesn't fit well in any position. I thought it would be a good idea because it came up suggested for the MK4 Golf. Right guys, so I'm going to continue with this anyway, just get it done, and obviously change that pillar pod thing when the time comes. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and remove the glove box. Looking at a couple of Torx screws along the top for now, so I'm going to remove them and then see what else I need to do. Okay guys, so we got a couple of Torx screws at the bottom of the glove box as well. So once I've undone them, hoping the whole unit will come out. Right guys, so once you manage to remove your glove box, you should see something like this. You've got to give the glove box a little bit of a wiggle out. Don't be scared to give it a bit of a pull, but obviously not too hard because you don't want to break things. But up here, there's a grommet right up here, and that will get your vacuum hose straight out into the engine bay. So I'm just going to quickly remove that, poke the hose through, and then we've got some work to do in the engine bay. Okay, so now we're in the engine bay. Going to want to pull off this rubber trim there, and we're going to need a Phillips screwdriver by the looks of it. to undo these 4 screws, which will get us to the pollen filter area, which is where I believe that grommet comes out of. So going to remove that now, guys, and be worthwhile to give it a good clean out, because I reckon there's going to be some dirt and some leaves in there. But we'll remove that now and see if we can see into the car. Right, guys, so once you open this area here up, you can pull out your pollen filter. This one obviously needs replacing, but I'll do that at a later date when it goes for servicing. And at the back there, I'm not too sure if you can see it, it's at the back left corner of this place where the pollen filter goes. You can just about see into the car. And if you go into the car, all of this dirt's come down from the pollen filter. You can see light through there where it goes into the engine bay. So I'm going to start feeding the vacuum hose through there, and then we'll get on to the next steps. I just thought I'd let you know, guys, as well, I've put a hole in this grommet so that I can obviously run the vacuum through it and still use the grommet to you know, sort of keep the car and the engine bay separate. So yeah, just going to pass that through the grommet and then get it all into place up in the engine bay. If you don't understand what I was talking about, this is basically how it's going to be passing through there, guys. So I'm not too sure just how clear it is, but I've managed to pull the vacuum hose through. And what you want to do is unclip this channel or duct, and basically you'll be able to feed this hose through this, and it can come out down there where the other wires come out and then into the engine bay. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. Right, so for this next bit, guys, there are lots of do's and don'ts. People are saying don't do it, people are saying do it, so on and so forth. But I'm hearing that the best place to tap into the vacuum is the vacuum hose for the fuel pressure regulator. Now, some people are getting confused and saying, oh, it's going to be showing you the fuel pressure. No, it's not going to be showing you the fuel pressure, because the fuel pressure is in the fuel rail and going to the injectors. This is just a vacuum hose, so all you're doing is tapping into a vacuum hose. Some people are saying that, oh, it's going to give a delay to the fuel pressure because now it's got to go through all this hose as well. Right, guys, so now I've got everything hooked up. All that's left to do in the engine bay is to get this vacuum hose and secure it. I think I'm going to secure it off the off this vacuum hose here, and I've put all this back together because I've managed to run the hose through, and I no longer need all of this exposed. It's all done. Just make sure that when your vacuum hose goes in here and you click this back on, that it's not getting squashed. Obviously make sure that it's routed around where your pollen filter goes, and obviously I'm going to cable tie all of these together. But also what I've done is I've connected the boost gauge up to the vacuum hose just so I can run it and make sure that it's good so far. So I've just literally quickly run it. I'm going to put that grommet back on now. Then I'm going to join this hose onto the other one that I've got and run it through the dashboard at the back here just to get it over to the driver's side. Then I can start fiddling with it over there and get the wires attached and everything like that. Right, so the next thing I've done is use my straight coupler to couple these two together, and I've literally used the torchlight to have a look, and I've run the vacuum hose all the way through to the other side of the dashboard in the footwell. Now what I've also done, I'll quickly show you now, I undid this screw here, which allowed me to pull this bit of trim away a little bit. So if I just show you now, and then I was able to get my hand up there and pull the rest of this vacuum through. So I'm going to pull it all through, and then I've got to start looking at options of how to route it up to the pillar. So bit by bit, slowly getting there. It's not that bad. I've done worse jobs, you know. Guys, I had to go a step ahead just so I could figure this bit out myself. Taking these bits of dashboard off down here, this part here and the side part, and I've taken the light switch off. All that was involved for this bottom piece here was literally, there's 2 Torx screws that go in at the bottom, over here and over here, and then you're able to pull it off. This is just held in with some simple clips on the side here, so that just takes being pulled off. And obviously this door's on it, but you can just lever that door open and pull that off. So now I've got all this exposed here, I'm going to be able to run this vacuum line up towards the pillar. I'll also show you how to take that light switch out in a minute once I put everything back together. So I've now routed the vacuum hose through the back of the dashboard. You can actually get your hand in here, which is pretty handy, and also if you pull down some of these panels you can get your hand in and feed it all through all the way up here. I've just pushed it behind a bit of dashboard here, and I've started it to make sure that it's not pinched or leaking anywhere. Everything seems good at the minute. Literally just have to do the wires and sort out some kind of way to secure it to the pillar. If not, I'm thinking about ordering one of the gauge holders here, and I'll just reroute the vacuum hose back through and the wires through to this bit, which is probably the best place to have the gauge, if I'm honest with you. So I'm literally going to throw all these bits of dash back up now after I've done the wires, and then that's it. All right guys, quick one. I've got the black wire off the gauge coming, and I've just literally bodged it to ground it on that bracket there just for testing purposes, and I've pushed this wire into the grey one at the back of this dimmer switch here. So when I turn it on, it goes on, off, on. All right. Right guys, so had things been okay, we would have had the gauge looking a little something like this today, but due to the difficulty with this rubbish pillar pod mounting, I'm gonna have to leave it until I get something different. Let me just flick it on here. Looks pretty good, lights up pretty well, but unfortunately can't do much today. Okay guys, so it's another day now. If you can remember, I was saying that I was having trouble with this pillar pod. It was really annoying that it didn't fit the pillar properly, and I didn't want to have to adapt it and bodge it up and have it like looking messy. So all I did literally was I stuck this to the dash with the Velcro that I had for now. It comes off really easily. So I've had it hooked up just as I was driving along, because obviously I wanted to drive the car, and it would have had a vacuum leak if I didn't have the gauge attached to it. Although I could have clamped the hose, I guess. So I've just left that there. I've bought an alternative. What I've got is this SWG vent gauge pod instead. So it just goes into the air vent up here. It's a straight swap for this here. So it's just going to be a straight replacement there instead. And yeah, first things first with this, all I can say is it does seem to be quite good quality. It is quite expensive. I've had a look at it actually, and it says VW and Germany on it, so I don't know whether this is just a genuine part that's been modified. Actually, the flap at the back still works and everything, although it's obviously advised to keep that closed so that the boost gauge doesn't get all the hot air to the back of it. Could potentially destroy the wiring and potentially destroy the vacuum hose. So this is what I'm going to be swapping in instead, guys. A lot happier with this because it's going to be really neat down here, sort of discreet in a way rather than being up here on the pillar. So going to get this removed, get this new one fitted, and take her for a spin. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at this, guys, how it fits in there. It was a really snug fit into the vent. It does seem like it's made pretty well, so I'm really happy with it. This doesn't need any more securing, it's really tight in there. So let's just have a quick look at how it looks up against the interior of the car. So there you go, looks quite smart and quite neat. It's going to keep things decluttered off the dash now as well, rather than having that pillar pod. And I don't know if some of you guys mentioned, I did look at the New South gauge mounting here behind the steering wheel, but just decided to go for this for myself. Personal preference, I sort of preferred it, although it was expensive and stuff. I got some cash back from my phone recently, and that paid for my purchase. Also, when it comes to things like this, I think it's best to get what you want rather than settling for what you can afford at the time. If you can save a little bit or use some money from elsewhere to buy what you want, then I think it's better in the end, because obviously it gives you that better sense of achievement and happiness with what you've done. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and fit that now. Hopefully it's a nice straight swap. I haven't actually taken that part of trim out, but yeah, let's go for it, see what it looks like. First things first, gonna get this switch out. I'm just going to get this switch out and disconnect the plug at the back here first. And there's actually a screw down there underneath that I'm going to have to undo as well. Right guys, so if you're going to remove the old switch holder and vent unit, there's also a little tag at the back. You can reach in through here and push it down and click it out of the way. And also I've had a look at this one and there's a hole there, so I'm assuming that there's a screw through this vent. I've actually found it. See if you can see it in the top right corner there, another little Torx. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that and it should all pull out now. Obviously I've detached the dimmer switch as well. Okay, so let's do a little side-by-side comparison. I've actually just had a look and they're literally identical, and they've actually got the same part number on the top. So if anything though, this one here, this original OEM one, it does seem a bit more solid and a little bit better than this one over here. Okay, so I quickly just popped the light switch in here. That's what it's looking like at the minute. Obviously the dimmer switch is missing, but this is where the wiring part comes in. Now, a lot of people online saying that you can go for the grey wire, if you guys can see it. Not too sure how well the focusing of this camera is, but yeah, you can go for the grey wire. What I'm going to do is, if you can see in here properly, there's space in the connectors next to the wires to try and get the wire in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to strip the wire back a little bit more, and I'm going to push it into the connector. Personally, I don't want to start messing around with the loom. Like, you know, you could cut a strip of the wire, cut a strip of the coating out and wrap this wire into it, connect it on and put some solder on it and some heat shrink and this and that. But personally, I don't think there's enough space to be fiddling around. So I'm going to push this into the connection, make sure there's good enough connection. I'm going to earth this wire. I may just undo this bolt and earth it there. Some people earth it on the connection for the earth connection for the fuse box. I'm literally just going to keep it simple, do it there, make sure my connections are good and everything's working fine, and that's how I'm going to leave it. Like I said, I don't want to fiddle around with wiring too much. I'm not good with it at all, and I don't want to mess anything up because it's going to be, it would end up being expensive. So I'm going to see how well that works out for now. But I'm going to go ahead and wire that into the dimmer switch, the plug for it, and slot everything back into place. Okay, so what you want to do is use this opportunity to just pop the gauge out, so you can flick the vent over and get your screw back in that top right hand corner. So this is it now. Just going to peel off this protective film. And there we got the gauge in all its glory. It's looking pretty good actually. Have a quick light check, so you can see there all the lights and everything work. Start it up, see that it's working. Just going to go for a quick drive, see how the gauge moves, see what kind of boost we got making here, make sure everything's running smoothly. Go and have a quick look, get the engine under a bit of load so we can get a nice good reading. So that's the end of this video. Gauge fitting went really well. Really happy with it. Although it cost a little bit more than I was planning to spend, looks really good and I'm happy with the result, and I wouldn't have it any other way now. So that's all done. And guys, this isn't a video of how you must install your gauge. This is one way that you can install it. You know, you can choose your own way to do things. You can put the vacuum hose into the vacuum pipe that controls the diverter valve. You can choose to solder your wires in. You know, you could do a bit more of a solid job on the wiring, whatever you want. But for you little DIYers, if you need a few tips and stuff like that, or you're stuck on anything, it might help you. But anyway, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching it. If you want to see more, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like if you like it, comment if you want to comment and ask a question or whatever. It's up to you. And I'll see you guys at the next video.